Welcome to your Aligned as Fuck Life podcast, hosted by your girl, Shalvika. I am a life transformation coach, a wife, a cat mom, pure generator, Enneagram 3, Pisces sign, and helping you build an aligned as fuck life is my jam. Out in this world, we believe that there are no set rules for building a life, career, and business. That we are all unique and we should be able to embrace our uniqueness in everything we do while shedding all the rules or bullshit rules one at a time. We will talk all things mindset, manifestation, healing, energetics, rituals, success, and so much more. I believe that I can have it all and you can too. Ready for an episode that will take you one step closer to your aligned as fuck life? Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to episode 60, Regenerative Life and Business with Sam Garcia. Oh my God, you guys, I am so excited to be bringing this episode to you guys because I have been such a massive fan of Sam. Like, I have read her book, I've been following her, and of course, as we dive into the episode, you will get to know her better. But before we dive in, I just want to share that we had technologically challenged recording. The internet gods were not very happy with us. So this whole episode that happened between Hawaii and India is not the most seamless that I would have liked. But oh my God, if you dive in, the content is so fucking gold. That's all. That's just a note that I wanted to share before we dive into the episode. I cannot wait for you to dive in, and of course I'm gonna add all of Sam's details in the show notes. Connect with her, buy her book. She is a massive fucking gem. All right, let's dive in. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Aligned as Fuck Life with Shavika. And I'm so excited to have a very, very special guest, Sam, here. Hi, Sam.
Hi, so good to talk with you today and be on here with you.
Yeah, so good to have you. So I know you as someone who has written the book Regenerative Business and Dirty Alchemy. Like these are your brands in your book. But for our listeners, can you just tell us who Sam really is and what got you there?
I really am. Oh my gosh.
So this podcast is about kind of establishing role models that follow not the beaten path. So yeah, that's why we want to know who you are.
Awesome. Yeah, so I wrote the book Regenerative Business, which is really around how do we align our businesses with the principles of nature. But if you read the book, I'm using it in the context of business, but it's 100% for all of life. I moved to Maui when I was in my early 20s, and it was just on a whim. I lived in Michigan, which is in the Midwest of the mainland United States, for my entire life, and just had this like sense for over a year after college, like I'm gonna move somewhere. So I never put down roots. I was freelancing. I didn't have like a in-person job. I was just working online, which at the time was really weird. And I was just like, I just have a sense. I have a sense that I'm not going to be staying in Michigan, but I have no idea. I have no idea what that means, what that looks like. And a friend who I was working on a project with at the time just invited me. She was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? She was in her late 30s, so like very adult compared to how I felt in my early 20s. And she's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I knew she lived in Hawaii, and I like jokingly said, like, oh, you mean after I moved to Hawaii? And she's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. Like, I was talking with my husband, and we were wondering if he wanted to come and stay in our extra room and just help out with the family and like cook meals. And like that's how I ended up in Hawaii. And it was it totally aligned as fuck. It was a lot of patience and like uncertainty, which is a lot of when you feel like something is going to come into your world.
Yeah.
There is this sense of like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what it's going to look like. I can't actually prepare for this. Or like you can only prepare to a certain extent. So it was a very uncomfortable time for like that year of like, where am I going? What am I going to do? Like, I'm just kind of waiting. I'm waiting to see what presents itself. And that's how I ended up on Maui. But with like living a regenerative lifestyle and having a very nature-based life, which is a lot of my work, my husband's work, I think it naturally leads to being aligned as fuck.
I love that. I love that. So I'm just curious, how is the switch for you? Like, I live in a very urban
Mm.
setup, like an 11th floor apartment with
Mm.
just other buildings around me. And one of the things that I feel at some point I want to do is, move to the countryside,
Mm.
right? And I know I've had these conversations with a lot of my clients and listeners, but like, how does that really go? Because you actually lived through that.
I've never lived in a city, so I
Oh,
can't
you never
actually
lived in the
speak to that.
city. Okay,
No,
okay,
no. So like I didn't. I grew up in the suburbs, so
okay,
so
cool.
it's not city, but it was definitely more dense lifestyle than
Right,
living here, definitely. But
right,
I mean, my biggest recommendation is to try it, not as like a part-time low stakes thing. Like
right.
can you try out and do like a house swap for 3 months and
Hmm.
see how it feels? Because I know a lot of people who really idealize living in a rural environment or like even living in Hawaii, and then they'll stay here for a year or stay in the country for a year and then move. They move back because they're like, I idealize this, but isn't actually what I wanted. So if you can take the risk down and just be like, this is gonna be a fun experiment. Can I spend 1 month or 3 months in a place and have an out? I know this is gonna end and see how it feels.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Okay, cool. So let's kind of come back to your forte, which is regenerative practices, right? Like I know you talk about regenerative business, but
Mhm.
for someone who's listening who has no fucking clue what that is, could you just give us a little glimpse of what that is?
Yeah, of course. So the word regenerative speaks to leaving, at least with regenerative agriculture. My husband's a farmer and he does regenerative agriculture. So there's I pull a lot of those metaphors and parallels in. And with regenerative agriculture or farming, what you're doing is actually leaving a piece of land better than it was when you got there.
Mm.
So organic agriculture or conventional farming, they're exploitative in and of themselves. Even organic, they're all only with humans in mind, and they're only with like, how can I produce the most? How can I get the most out of it? And it's usually very money driven, which is beautiful. Like, I'm a fan of money, like, let's not kill money, but to
Right.
have that be the bottom line and only pay attention to that, this one single note, then
Yeah.
life kind of becomes devoid of meaning. So with regenerative agriculture, what you're trying to do is over 1 year or over multiple years, you're trying to make the land more fertile. You're trying to make it more productive, um, there be more diversity and biodiversity in there so that it becomes more resilient. And then if we take a step beyond of how do we actually live a regenerative life, it is how do we actually make all of our relationships better? The people that we come into contact with better. How do we make it so that our life is rich on all of these different levels? It's not just in one area, it's in all of these different areas. So with business, I talk a lot with how to make our businesses this like sense of passion and give us beautiful relationships and all these things, but it doesn't have to be with business. This is how do we just live a regenerative life? And this is calling in more resilience. It's calling in more abundance. It's bringing fulfillment into everything. So is that a good definition?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, for someone who wants to say, explore bringing these principles into their life,
Mm-hmm.
what would the first steps kind of look
Mm-hmm.
like?
Mm-hmm. So in my book, I outline these 8 different principles in
Mm-hmm.
nature for more abundance, fulfillment, impact. And so we can like look at a few of them that are like hyper specific to like all of life. The first one that especially for women that I love to point people to is uh nature is cyclical. So how do we actually work in cycles? So, if you have a menstrual cycle, you probably know that different times of the month you feel differently. But we've been conditioned through our society that every single day is the same. Every Monday through Friday, we're going to work a certain amount of hours. We're going to like expect the same level of work and same amount of work done, or expect ourselves to show up in relationships the exact same way, or show up to our kids in the exact same way. When it's just impossible and unrealistic. We're not robots. So to actually connect in with our human cycles makes it so that you have a more beautiful and it can actually be a more productive life, because if you focus your, let's say, again, bringing it back to there's a lot of different cycles, but to just bring it back to menstrual cycles, like if you track your cycle and you start to recognize, okay, during ovulation we have that phase once in 1 week of the month, pretty much. You
Right.
usually have more energy, you usually are more outgoing, you usually are more social. And so realizing that and tracking that and being like, okay, I know that this is the time of the month when I'm going to enjoy social events more. So I'm actually going to make my kids play dates that week, or I'm
Right.
going to schedule family portraits that week because I'm going to feel prettier. And then during your menstrual phase, actually paying attention to that and being like, I'm not going to put my family vacation. That sounds terrible. And like even in your job or in your business or in your work, like realizing that if you push all of certain types of work to certain times of the month, you'll realize you're going to actually get more done, even if the entire week of menstruation you're getting pretty much nothing done, because you're timing it for when it actually flows with your own cycle. Even during our day and our daily life, this doesn't even have to be over the course of the month. There's usually times of the day where we're the most engaged, we're the most full of energy. So if you can just start recognizing for yourself, even during the course of a single day, like when should you put time when you have to teach your kids math, like when are times in the day when you really want to work on a creative project, because you're going to feel more at home in your body. You're going to start feeling more aligned as fuck if you're actually recognizing and honoring your rhythms, because they are going to be different person to person.
Yeah.
So that's one of them, is actually working in cycles.
Right. I love that. And I just want to share a small personal experience. So I held
Mm.
a corporate job. I worked with John Deere, the American manufacturing company that makes
Uh-huh.
agricultural equipment.
Uh-huh.
I worked with John Deere for 8.5 years. And
Wow.
I literally every month before I would get my period, I had a migraine. An insane, like intense migraine. And I would just pop pills and go to work because that's what you're supposed to do. You're this modern, empowered woman who can do every single fucking thing, right? That's
Yeah.
that's that's what we've been sold on. And I
Hmm.
quit my job almost 4 years ago now, and I have probably had 3 migraines since then.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because now I have that space, like what you said, right? Like we are sick, our lives are cyclical, our energy is cyclical. So now I have that space to give myself some downtime. When I need, like I rest a few days, like leading up to my period, because I know that's when I need it the most. And
Hmm.
it's just so weird. I feel that as modern women, we have been kind of sold this idea that we can, do it all and we are like super women. And we are. I'm not saying we aren't, but we were never taught how to honor ourselves and our bodies and where we come from in order to be super women.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that. It is this horrible programming, because when you hear you can do it all, it sounds really empowering, but it actually isn't.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
Like if you look at the statistics with the most women that I know, and I don't know what the statistics are globally, I just don't pay attention. It's women who go back into the workplace and they have full-time jobs. They do that in addition to taking on significantly more work in comparison to than their spouse at home. Like they're cleaning more, they're taking the kids more. So like they are literally doing it all.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And
you can do it all, but do you want to do it all?
yeah, exactly. And okay, I don't know how much you know about traditional Indian societies, but a lot of Indians live in what we call joint families. So it's like multiple generations living together. And it's a
Beautiful.
it is, but it
But
can also be extremely toxic because it's
okay.
a heavily patriarchal system.
Yeah.
Right. So, like you said, like I know so many women, so many of my clients have to wake up at like 4. Again, I have no problem with someone waking up at 4 a.m., right?
Yeah.
They have to wake up at 4 a.m. because there's so much to do in the day, right? And
Yeah.
they have to cook for their kids and they have to take care of their kids and then go to work and like smash at their jobs and then come back and then like, and it is so, it's very interesting because I've been reading like more statistics about even like Indian women and so many women who after they get married actually start having a lot of hormonal imbalances like thyroid issues
Ah,
and PCOD because you know you're just pushing yourself all the fucking time.
yeah.
And yeah, that's true like I feel we are in that weird phase where especially in the Indian context, our women were empowered and we were taught and we were educated and we were told that you can go ahead and do whatever the fuck you want. But the rest of the societal structure wasn't evolved enough to handle a modern independent woman.
Yeah.
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 Oh, so one thing I like to think about with like the do it all is can you switch it to like you get to have it all.
Right.
So like it's like this little like verb change that I think changes a lot of like instead of doing it all, can you have it all and
Yeah.
working through that. But man, that's what a time to have some serious conversations with your family and like putting on the big girl pants for being like, okay, I want to have a career. So what does that actually look like for my family? Or like
Right.
maybe you don't want a career. Like like what do you actually want, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Very interesting. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So apart from honoring your cycles, you said
Mm-hmm.
there were a few more principles that you could use.
Yeah, so another one that I think is really great for this regenerative lifestyle is thinking about renewable energy. And
Hmm.
we could be talking about like solar energy and wind power, but in this context, we're actually speaking of our own energy. So a lot of people in their lives, and I mean, this totally ties back to doing it all and having it all. A lot of us are fueling our actions and decisions based on the energies of obligation, proving, and fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are non-renewable energies. What happens when you fuel your decisions and fuel your action and fuel your goals on proving and fear and obligation is you are going to be burnt out. You're going to be resentful.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
if you actually ever achieve the goals that you want, you're often going to not feel satisfied with them. So like if your goal is to get to a certain place in your career, or if your goal is to have a kid and a family and you get it, usually if it's out of this fear, you're going to get to it and there's not going to be any satisfaction there. So if we can start switching our fuel source to renewable energies, which is desire and inspiration, then it really does clean up a lot of that. So desire is such a amazing and terrifying thing for women. I don't know how much you talk about desire, but I have a feeling you do a lot.
Oh my God, I do. And pleasure.
Yeah, and For me, of course, desire, pleasure, joy, these are some things that I heavily work with my clients. Because again, we live in such a role based environment that I think in order to tap your own authenticity, in order to tap who you truly are at your core, it is so important to tap into your desires, your pleasures, your joy. Okay, so next question. How do you connect with your own desire and inspiration, your own renewable energy resources? Like, if you could share some tips and tricks.
Yeah, this is such a good one. If you can make the time for it, I highly recommend actually sitting down with a journal and dumping your heart out.
Right.
Because it is really hard in the context of everyday life to, if you aren't used to connecting with desires, it's hard, especially when you have people around you all the time, it's hard to connect with your desires. So if you can actually take 30 minutes, an hour to sit down with a journal and be like, what do I actually want? And start going deeper with this and like addressing some other emotions that could come in, especially for women. It's like, what would I want if I could not get in trouble for this?
Right.
What would I want if no one would get mad at me for this?
Right.
What would I want just taking away other people's opinions and like just trying to like get rid of
Yeah.
that. Cause it's so, I know it's so hard as women, especially when we have deep relationships and a lot of beautiful relationships around us that we have. Like we think about like, I can only want this thing, or if I wanted this, then this person would get angry at me. It can get real. So if you can at least, I mean, like burn the paper afterwards, I don't care. Like, but if you can like get comfortable with yourself to share those desires, it is such a gift. It is such a gift. And obviously work with people, coaches that can see you and mirror you in this and be a safe space. I don't know if you are a coach. I'm assuming you are. Yeah. So hire Shalvika because it is so fucking hard to if you are surrounded by people who want something from you, even if it is in the beautiful context of a family that want you to be a certain way or want you to be who you were, even or who you currently are, even if you want to be someone who shows up differently, then having a safe place to go, whether it's your journal, whether it's a friend, whether it's a coach, and be able to explore, like you will be shocked. With women, we are so fucking powerful. If you can actually release your desire and let it out of this shell that we encapsulate it in, like your world can change, your entire life can change so quickly.
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
Sharing that.
Of course. And I mean, with inspiration, I think of desire as this like more like we usually can tap into our desires of what we want, and like it's really connecting in with like this want, like what am I drawn toward, where inspiration for me is more of like this channeling.
Right.
And for business it's like what am I drawn towards, and like in all sorts of life you can, if you are pulled by inspiration, it's not just this internal want, but it's like, ooh, this thing came through me and I suddenly have all of this energy to work on this one thing. I don't know why. Like I have no reason to like want to do this or want to like go to this park today. It is, I mean, like what an aligned as fuck way to live, right?
Yeah. And I think, do you feel intuition also kind of plays a role in this? Like, is that something that you would call a renewable energy, like tapping into
Yeah.
intuition?
Yeah, I do. Desire and inspiration are these renewable energies. So those are two things you really want to cultivate. I'm sure you have amazing stories from your clients of like when you start like following these little pings of inspiration, where it takes you to is just unreal.
My God. Yeah. And so, how do you also disconnect from these non-renewable energy resources of obligation, fear, and
How I disconnect from non-renewable energies. I mean, it is definitely a practice. You get good at it, and it's something where if you just keep doing it, it's like this neural pathway that you just keep on going down, and it just gets easier over time. But things that I do in my daily life to really cultivate it and have it be something that is standard versus this weird thing that I have to brush up against all the time is taking time for myself and actual self-inquiry consistently. I love journaling, but I'm really inconsistent with it. So what I'll do is every morning I walk my dogs, and it's like a 30-45 minute walk, just me alone with my dogs. And it's something where it is this sense of like, I have to do it because I have to take care of my dogs, but it also forces me to be alone for this certain period of time. So what I like to do, because I can't for the life of me be consistent with journaling, even though I know I feel so much better when I do, is I talk to myself. And I ask myself questions when I walk, because I am in a, like, you would have to do it in your head if you're not in a remote area like I am. I can't, you probably like don't want to like walk down the city talking to yourself. But if you can go to a place and actually like talk it out, of like, ask yourself questions like, what do I actually want? And like, what would I love this day to look like? And why am I feeling so weird today? And like, what was that fight actually about with my husband, you know? And you can actually, if you can be alone with your thoughts, so much gets uncovered, because we're smart. You're a smart, if you're listening to this, you're a smart woman. Like, let's be real. Like, you know what the issues are. Like, you just need to like take some time and be honest with yourself. And I mean, that's my number one, is like just spending time alone so that I can be with myself, because you're smart. What do you do to unplug from those?
Me, so journaling is my thing,
Yeah.
like 99% of the days. So yeah, I think it's exploring yourself
Mm-hmm.
on the for me. That's
Mm-hmm.
so important. Over the years, I've also cultivated a lot of other
Mm.
breath work.
Yeah.
I do a lot of intuitive movement. All of
Mm.
these ways in which you could connect with yourself, right? But I think that the most essential thing for that is for you to be able to spend time with yourself. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's the first, and then you can build on whatever rituals and whatever practices that you want to build on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even
And like, also with that is like, if you have friends in your life that you can have like non-toxic friends that
yeah,
you can have conversation with, or if you can hire a coach or a therapist or a somatic experiencing practitioner, someone that you can consistently meet up with, that can track your journey over time. Like, yes, we're smart, but there are so many ways where we have our own we have blind spots that we can't
oh
see
yeah,
for. No matter how smart you are, no matter how intuitive and how much self-work you've done, having people who can see things that you can't within your own life it's invaluable.
oh yeah, absolutely. Like for me, one of the most life-altering experiences was working with a somatic coach a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
Because um, till then, I mean, I got certified as a coach, but I came from a corporate background. I'm an engineer by training, so
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of this masculine energy
Yeah.
which I used to approach my business, and
Yeah.
I realized that this feels like my job. It doesn't feel flowy and easy and pleasurable. It doesn't feel that. It just feels like numbers, and because again, that's the perspective that I had. Like you said, we have so many blind spots.
Yeah.
Then I started reading more and more about somatic practices and how you can actually connect with your femininity. Like so many women I see actually live a rejection of their feminine powers,
Yeah.
right? Because again, we grow up in this capitalist patriarchal world, and we're just told that there is only this one way of doing
Yeah.
it. So I think for
Yeah.
me, that was one of the most groundbreaking experiences, is to actually learn to trust my own intuition, to connect with that space of flow, that space of collaboration rather than competition. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
That's beautiful. No, totally. And there is definitely something when it is such feminine energy is such a superpower. It's so powerful. And I think that because of that, it's been used to control us. And like it really has. Like you go back 10,000 years and you look at human civilization and how it's all around these feminine deities. It's like feminine energy is so fucking powerful that of course they tried to squash us down. Like of course they did. But like when you start actually like grounding into your own feminine energy, like, and notice how everything in your life starts orienting, like your whole family dynamic will change. Like they're like people like your family members will just be so excited to be of service to you, like not in like this servant mentality, but like in a like, oh, when mama's happy everyone's happy sort of way.
Yeah.
And it can start with you. Like it has to start with you knowing what makes you happy and you making yourself happy, and just watch how everything will change.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's even the whole Indian culture, right? Like we have so many, we call them devis. Devi is a goddess.
Mm.
There are so many avatars. Avatars, wait, what's the word of avatar? Avatar is like versions
Okay.
of the goddess.
Yeah.
There's goddess Lakshmi, who's the goddess of
Mhm.
abundance, and then
Uh-huh.
Durga, who's the goddess of love, and then there's Kali, who's the goddess of destruction. And
Uh-huh.
it's so fascinating that I didn't grow up learning about any of this.
Wow.
Like we have, I feel, and I don't know if it's true with a lot of other Asian African countries, I'm not sure, but with India specifically, we have tried so hard to um, westernize, because that's what is
Mm-hmm.
the dream. Like that's what's gonna get us to the next level. That's what's gonna enable us to make more money and be more advanced and all of that. That we've
Yeah.
actually like really completely started rejecting where we come from. And I think I know this is really off topic, but I feel it's so essential to kind of just find our ways back, because there's so much beauty. There are such beautiful stories and so many
Yeah.
beautiful temples and so much history there that we have just rejected. Like as a collective, that I feel that's like a collective rejection of the feminine.
That's so interesting because the books that I've read that have talked about um Indian female deities, they're so like uplifting of them. So to hear it that it's not in your culture, like it's not interpreted that way, it's just like,
Yeah, and
ah,
it's just something we are taught anymore. Like,
yeah,
and that's the thing, right? Like we have to read books about it. Like I grew up in India. I was born and raised in India. But
yeah,
I didn't know. I didn't know the entire story of Kali till I went to the Himalayas on a trek. You know,
wow.
someone there, like one of the locals there who was taking us on the trek, told us about it, and it was so fascinating.
You're like, I'm amazing. Like, what are you talking about? Oh my gosh.
It's
Ugh.
interesting. Also,
Mhm.
roots and for those.
Mhm. We can see how like my sun has officially set here. Like it's all dark in my video.
I
Uh,
okay. And you would like to? Did you feel is absolutely essential to share?
um, I think one thing that's really important for women who want to make a change in the world is realizing that the number one thing that will prevent you from making the type of change that you want to make in the world is being busy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I come from an environmental activist background, and one of the main reasons why people are polluting or whatever is, or like making choices that they wouldn't necessarily even deem as good themselves, is because they're busy and tired and distracted and it's more convenient. And so, like, of course they're choosing that. So, and the same can be said for you wanting to actually put time towards causes that you like, or start a new hobby or whatever, you actually making space in your day and getting rid of all of the other bullshit will make you actually living the life and being the person that you want to be in your life. And we're taught we have to do it all, but actually, in order to be the person that you are proud to be and the woman that you are like really striving to be and desiring to be, like, you actually have to be doing way, way less.
Right.
And that's hard. Like it's hard to cut the stuff out, especially when a lot of other people around you are doing all the things. Like
Right.
our bodies need to be so well nourished in order to be the people that we want to be in this world. And that requires a lot of spaciousness. I'll just leave that there.
Okay, I have a question.
Great.
What's on your heart? Something you have been thinking about, but
So what's one thing on my heart that I've been working towards?
yeah.
I mean, my like very obviously front and center thing is like I've been working towards like getting my audiobook out for my book. Writing a book was actually a huge thing for myself. That was something where I just speaking of doing things that you want to do in your life and speaking to that, I was like doing my morning walks with the dogs. And I've been writing this book for 8 months, and I was just, but like on and off and like not making time for it. And I was like, it'll happen when it happened. And then like I had this like breakthrough on one of my walks where I was talking to myself, and I was like, the Sam who I want to be, is the woman that I want to be is an author. Like that's something that it was just something I uncovered, like speaking of like self-inquiry and making time for that. And in the course of a month, I spent all of my free time getting it out into the world. And like, so now I'm on like this next little thing of like, what is the most important project that I could be working on? And there's like plenty of other things I could be working on in my life and my business. And it's this audiobook. So I'm like kind of in this like next little creative portal with that. But outside of it, I feel like what I'm trying to do is I've been trying to really, make more time for nonsensical hobbies, because I'm super creative in my work, and I'm like last week I made candles, just like oh, that looks like a fun little project. And so that's something where I really want to be stoking this creative flame. I think it is something that, especially working with our hands, like it's interesting, like speaking of hormones and women's hormones, they show that when we work with our hands, it releases oxytocin, which is like that feel good chemical. So like actually and I work all the time on my computer, which is like not working with my hands. So like actually having these more tactile hobbies and like playful things that I do, like that's something that's a fun little thing that I'm working on. Mm-hmm.
So almost came into your universe. Like I found you as Sam the author because Simone, I got to know about your book through Simone. So in my head, you were the author, and then
yeah, exactly. See, I made it happen.
The last question. This is something I love asking all my guests. What is that one source? Maybe a book, a movie, a song that you keep going back to, or that you can't imagine living your life?
Okay. The first thing that comes to mind, but I want to think of a second thing because I'm like, I know I can think of a book. But the first thing that comes to mind is dance. I grew up dancing, and I gave it up when I was 18 just because I was like, I went to college, I got busy. But I grew up doing a lot of dance, and it wasn't until 2 years ago that I found it again. And I found it in like I had so many excuses. It was like a kind of class, a kind of dance that I don't like. I never learned how to do it and like wasn't really attracted to, but I was like, well, dance is dance. I just have to and I wanted to make more female friends. Like 2 years ago, I just moved to a different town. So I didn't have any female friends. And I was like, I want to make friends. And I know that I love making friends through hobbies or through work. So that was my thing. And so that's something where I'm like, I lost it for over 10 years, and coming back to it, it was just like, how did I go for so long without it? And so I think it is actually an important thing for women to like dance and be in their hips, and like what a good like root chakra activity. So
Yeah.
that's one. And then if I think of a book, I'm like trying to think of one that's not business related. So hard.
Okay if it's business related.
Okay, so something that I've read that really blew my mind. I mean, I think like turning back to what we talked about earlier is like I worked with a somatic experiencing person a few years ago, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing. Just like the little tiny little shifts that would make massive changes in your life, and it like felt so gentle. And usually working with someone who's experienced in that is really accessible for people because people are trained worldwide working with someone. So that's definitely something that I love and recommend. Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Sam. This is lovely chatting with you. Thank you so much for coming here. Even though I know the sun has already set in your world.
I know it's all dark here now. And we had some internet things, but we did it. I'm so proud of us.
I'm in You're in Hawaii. I'm in India. We recorded a podcast. I'm just grateful that all
It's
of you
amazing.
enabled us to do that. And
Uh-huh.
thank you so much for sharing your insights. And for anyone listening, please go grab Sam's book, Regenerative Business. I think it's one of the very interesting books that I have read lately on business that is not about go, go, go and do. I love it.
Mhm.
So
Oh, thank you so
much
much.
for being
And it was so good to talk to you all. And hope you all have an amazing day and rest of your day because it's only 9 a.m. there.
awesome. Thank you, Sam. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for tuning in today's episode. If you absolutely loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on iTunes so that I can keep the good stuff coming. And if you aren't already following me on social media, come soak up some extra inspiration and send me a hello on Instagram by searching @ShalvikaP. Also tagged in the show notes. I love and adore you so much, and I will talk to you super soon. In the meantime, continue building your most authentic and aligned as fuck life. Ciao!